Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Bodell. I'm the CEO of FutureThink, and I am so pleased to be here today to be your closing keynote speaker for SAP's DCOM 2021. By now, you've had 3 full days of networking and sharing and insights that over 40,000 of you have taken part of digitally for the first time. Congratulations. Well, I want to end this DCOM on a high note. And what I'd like to do is talk to you today in my keynote about a topic that I studied for over 20 years and I know affects you a lot. And that topic is killing complexity. I want to teach you how to create a culture of simplification and get to the work that matters. So let's dive in. I'd like you to think about your average day. Now, how many of you would say that you experience some form of complexity at work each day? For many of you, the answer is some or a lot. And if you answered that, you're not alone. There's a great study that was done not long ago that asked over 10,000 people, how would they describe their workday in terms of complexity? How would they describe their work? And over 75% of them described their work as complex or very complex. Now, where is that complexity coming from? It's a lot of places, and some you might not expect. But organizationally, we've become much more complex over the past several decades. Since the 1950s, we now measure 6 times the amount of metrics that we used to. So if you used to measure 10 metrics, now you measure 60. Now, that makes sense because we have access to more data, but are we using all that data that we're actually taking the time to report on? The second thing is it's more complex, is depending on what type of an organization you are, there are more governance structures, more boards, more committees, more reporting structures, more innovation centers than ever before, which is good and can be bad. They've increased between 50 and 350%. And sometimes those very structures that we put in place to help us be more innovative hold us back from doing it in the first place. What am I getting at with all this data and how you feel about complexity? Well, complexity at work is destroying our organizations. In fact, it's really interesting. There was another study that was done just a couple years ago around the future of work. And they pulled several thousand CEOs around the world and asked them, what is your number one strategic concern? Over 70% of those CEOs said their number one strategic concern was complexity and that it was only getting worse. Now, why is that an issue? Many people would say, well, it's financial. It's a drain on the organization. That's true. But the real issue is this: complexity is the enemy of meaningful work. It holds us back. It holds you back from doing the things that you were hired to do in the first place. Things like driving growth, creating value, and being more innovative. And if you're operating with complexity, you can't keep up. And the reason that's important is because today, speed is greater than size. What can be a real benefit for SAP, its distribution channels, its brand, its global reach, can also be part of its concern or downfall if we're not careful. So what do I mean by that? People that are operating with speed are able to pivot faster, able to innovate better, and able to actually reinvent the industries that they're in. And if you don't believe me, take a look at this slide. These are billion-dollar businesses that, for the most part, are less than 15 years old, and they used simplicity as the way to get ahead and completely disrupt the leaders in their field. Think about this. Airbnb made it simple for people to get a place to stay. Uber makes it simple for you to be able to get a ride, right? Dropbox made it simple for people to share files. Netflix made it simple for us to be able to binge watch our life away on movies. Kickstarter made it simple for small companies to get access to capital more quickly and actually disrupt more than you think. Simple is a competitive advantage. So here's a question I want us to think about. If we know the benefits of simple, why do we choose complexity so often? Let me show you what I mean. Let's warm up with a little exercise. Right now, wherever you're watching or sitting, I would like you to put down whatever's in your hands, and I would like you to pat your head, rub your stomach, and click your heels. Can you try that for me now? Pat your head, rub your stomach, click your heels. I wish I could see you all doing it right now. All right, let's stop. Now, how many of you were able to do all three at once? Most of you will probably say, I did it. The problem is, that's not what I asked you to do. I just asked you to pat your head, rub your stomach, and click your heels. Now, for most of us, that seems like a silly example, but this is what happens to us at work. Most people multitask, and the science tells us that doing one thing at a time gets us better results. The other thing this shows is that we always elevate everything to the same level of urgency. Every email, every voicemail, every report, every presentation, all is urgent, and we have to learn to stop that. The moral of the story here is a lot of complexity is self-imposed and unnecessary. That's the bad news. But the good news is a lot of it is within our sphere of control, and I'm going to show you how to get control of it. So here's another thing we need to think about is, where is this coming from? Well, for a lot of you here, you're experiencing the complexity trap. This is what we have in place in terms of our cultural norms, the way that we work that needs to change. If you're operating with complexity, there's a few issues that you're experiencing. First of all, you're less able to focus because we value more, not less, right? We're so proud of ourselves when we're able to achieve more, when we can check more off our to-do list. But it's not how much you get done on your to-do list, it's what's on the to-do list in the first place. We're rewarding people for managing more people, more geographies, more products and services. But if we want to have a culture that's simplified, we have to focus on less, and valuable is our metric for success. Second, another thing that happens with complexity is we have less agility. And in a world that is really full of constant change, that's an issue. Right? We want to be able to spend less time internal on those reporting issues and focus more on external, the more meaningful work. Finally, the third part of the complexity trap is there's less thinking that happens when you're operating with complexity because we value doing over thinking in too many of our organizational cultures, right? It's about action versus about ends. And that's an issue because in many companies, I would say that thinking has become a daring act. I mean, think about it. If you walked into someone's office or, I don't know, saw them on a Zoom call, and they were staring off into the distance, and you said, hey, what are you doing? And that person answered, oh, I'm sorry, I was just thinking. What would your reaction be? For most people, if you caught someone doing that for a long period of time, you'd say, get back to work. We don't want to equate thinking and pausing as working. That also needs to change. So I want you to think about here, to put a finer point on it. When and where do you do your best thinking? When I ask that question of people, most of the responses I get, and they're very common, are when I wake up or when I'm going to bed, when I'm running, when I'm cooking, when I'm driving the car, when I'm exercising. It used to be when you get on an airplane. Now, what do all these things have in common in terms of thinking? Usually they're when we're alone and it's quiet or we're doing something routine. The other thing most answers 99% of the time have in common is people don't say they do their best thinking at work. And we're going to change that. Simplicity allows that to happen. So here's what we're going to do. I want to tell you a little bit how other people have embraced simplicity so they can better think, be more agile, and focus. You know, we've seen it a lot with COVID. And this is obvious. The people that were successful at pivoting were the ones that had cultures that were focused. They had speed. They had simplicity. So you've got people like Dyson, traditionally a really cool consumer products company, realized, you know, maybe that's not all that we do. We could do medical products too and use our same infrastructure to produce those. Hence the Covent ventilator systems that Dyson committed to produce in the UK. Or you've got a company, a service company like OpenTable. Oh my gosh, you're a restaurant reservation company and no one's going to restaurants. What do? You just become a reservation company and you open yourself up to a new market like grocery stores. And you help grocery stores, which are famously low on technology, better use their system to slot people at shopping hours to promote safety and health. and better manage their inventory. Now, these are times of crisis. You want to be able to have, in any time, a culture of simplicity so you can better pivot. And these are companies that are doing that because they know simplicity is their advantage of the future. Now, if you want to start simplifying, you can do all kinds of things along a continuum, right? From informal to formal along the line. Now, what's really interesting about this is that if you look at Google, for example, they do things that are informal, like they have cut the crap committees that they informally have within different business units. That's a great way to get started. You can be Tesco, and they focus on just simplifying their product line and the number of SKUs they have on shelves. Maybe you don't need 18 different kinds of ketchup. Maybe 8 is just fine. And then you move all the way up here to the very formal side, and you've got people like Merck and Pfizer who have chief simplicity offices or officers in different groups, and they put money, budgets, and metrics against being able to simplify and get time back for work that matters. So why do we do this? I want to circle back to my original question. What's the benefit of doing this? It's financial, of course. So for people that are still not sure if they want to simplify, here's the great news. You can charge a 6% price premium, 6%. If you're a simplified organization, customers would rather deal with you because you value their time. Your stock prices within your industry tend to be higher than your more complex competitors, and your customers are more likely to recommend you. You get a bonus sales force. But there's a bigger issue here, and this is the real reason why I think simplicity is important. Simplicity is a cultural and ethical issue. It's cultural because culture is the work we do every day. That's important to remember. Culture is the work we do every day. I don't care about your mission statement. I don't care about the nice plaque on the wall or the posters that used to be in the cafeteria or what's on the website. How we experience our culture is the work we do every day. It's the boss we report to. It's the people we work with. And if we spend our time in meetings and emails, that's our culture. If we spend it doing innovative things, that's our culture. And if you have a culture that is simplified, people are more likely to stay. They're doing things that are satisfying and matter, and they're more engaged. Now, this ends up becoming an ethical issue as well, because people stay at these simplified companies because they know you value their time. I mean, I've always found it so interesting. Why do we get so mad when people waste our money, but we don't get the same level of upset when people waste our time? Time is the number one currency right now. It is a non-renewable resource. You will never get it back. So how are you spending that time? Well, let's really think about for a moment, what would be the impact at SAP if we simplified how we work? If you simplified how you work? Most people answer that we would save money. We'd save time. We'd eliminate waste. But you'll also get answers like people would be happier. They'd be more engaged. They would feel like they're fulfilling a mission. They'd be doing strategic, customer-centric work. I think we all know that simplification is a really powerful tool. The question is now, how do you get started? There's so many things I'd love to share with you, but I've picked just a few for this keynote so you can do these both with your team and for yourselves if you're a leader listening here today. So let me give you a few things to think about. The first thing I'd like you to do is that I would like you to identify areas to simplify. Why? Here's the great thing about simplification. If you tell your teams to go and simplify, get ready because they're going to do it. People can't believe they have permission to do it. The problem is they'll really do it, and they'll do it everywhere. What we want to do is we want to figure out where are the pain points and focus so we can really eradicate the waste and the low-hanging fruit. So try this exercise. Again, you can do this with yourself and then do it with your team. Make a T-chart. On the left-hand side, write down typical tasks, and on the right-hand side, write down desired work. Okay, here's how it works. On the left-hand side, I want you to write down 20 things 20 things that are typical tasks that you do, I don't know, for your job or in a week. And be specific. These are things like, analyzing X kind of data, attending Thursday status meeting at 3. Be specific. Now, if you're having a hard time writing down 20 things, you're doing it right? It should feel a little bit hard. Well, here's the deal. What you're going to do is you're going to look at that list, and then you're going to reflect for a moment, and I want you to circle the things that you think are valuable. Here's what's going to happen. People typically only circle a few things, the things that are truly valuable, and you can define what that means. It's valuable to your promotion, valuable to you hitting your KPIs, whatever it might be. Then you need to look at the list and say, if something on your list isn't circled, why are we doing it? Now, the first answer people are going to say is because I have to, it's an obligation, it's part of what we need to do as business as usual. That's fine. But those are items that aren't valuable, and we need to figure out how to simplify them. I'm not saying get rid of them, but to simplify them. But your goal is to figure out how can you get rid of or streamline those things that aren't circled so you can make space for the right-hand side of this chart. Right? The right-hand side is desired work. What do you wish you were doing? What can't you get to that you need more time for? What are things that would really make a difference in your job if you were able to get to those things? People typically write down things like this. They meet with innovative partners, or they could explore breakthrough business models. You get the idea. What you're doing on the right-hand side is you're defining meaningful work. And often, people haven't taken the time to decide what that means. If simplification is going to make space for things that matter, what is that thing that matters? Well, you'll also notice, either for yourself or when you do it with a team, the big ahas are the thing on the left-hand side. Those things tend to be internal. Typically, those are internal things. And they tend to be, if you ask people to describe what it's like to do them, it's fine, might even be draining. On the right-hand side, those things tend to be external. And when you ask people to describe those things, they tend to be energizing, inspiring, and innovative. So start by trying to identify places to simplify and meaningful work. Here's the next one, and I think you're going to love it. How would you like to kill stupid rules? This is probably the best tool that we teach people, and it's so fun because it's so easy to do. Right? I don't even need to teach it to you. It's pretty evident. Here's how it works. And I do this with CEOs all around the world, and they love it because it gets results quickly and people get ignited around it. Think about this. If you could kill any 2 rules at work, any 2, that would help you be more innovative, do more valuable things, get to work that matters, whatever you decide, what would those rules be? Why would you kill them? Now, there's a couple ground rules. The first is there are red rules and green rules. Okay, red rules are things like they're industry mandated, government regulated. You can't get rid of those rules because you go to jail. Don't touch those rules. Everything else is fair game. The second thing is you need to operate within your sphere of control. This is very important. Remember how we said that a lot of complexity is self-imposed and unnecessary? A lot of complexity is tactical. Right? I know we think it's regulatory, we think it's organizational. Really, when people complain about their time sucks and zombie meetings and things that happen to them at work, these are tactical complexities and things we have control over. So stay within your sphere of control, the work that your team does every day. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give your team 15, 30 minutes to write down all the rules they'd love to kill, all the things they want to change. And after that time, people will still want more time because they're going to be able to come up with so many things. And here's what's interesting. Here's the aha. A lot of the things they come up with are not rules. Sure, there's some rules. In fact, some people even say, oh, well, if I get rid of this rule, I have to create another rule. That's okay. The issue with a lot of rules is they were good in the past, but they've outlived their time. And we need to get rid of them or make them better. And what's interesting is a lot of the things people are going to talk about are meetings, emails, reports, cultural norms, annoyances, time sucks, things that you have the power to control and get rid of right now. Okay, I'm going to give you one more. I would like you to become a chief simplifier. right? Every person in the organization should become a chief simplification officer. You don't have to just hire and designate one and make it their job. What are some really interesting tips that you can take from other people that I've worked with around the world just to get started? Let me throw a few out for you and see what you think. Okay, first of all, if you have an issue with email, which everyone does, I'd love you to practice NNTR. NNTR was actually a great tactic that I learned from Merck in Canada. They were drowning in emails. And you know those annoying emails that you get that are FYI emails? They're meant to be one way and just sharing something, but people want to respond back with annoying things like, I got it, thanks, or list a million responses to why they read the article and liked it. They stopped that by typing NNTR in the subject line of the email. NNTR stands for no need to respond. And they cut down their email traffic when they did that by 18%. All right, let's do the next one. What if meetings are the issue for you? Well, this is interesting. What you can do is, first of all, do a meeting audit. And you're going to figure out all the meetings that you have during the year that are daily, weekly, monthly, annually, ad hoc, and you'll identify all the zombie meetings or all the unnecessary meetings that you have in place. Sprint Telecom did the same thing, and they cut out almost 13% of the meetings within specific business units and saved each person 2 to 3 hours a week just by doing that. The other thing you can do is you can't get rid of meetings, go on a time diet. Especially now when everyone now has had this new hybrid way of working. 30 is the new 60 and 15 is the new 30. How can you take specific meetings and see where you can shave the time? Okay, another one that I love is around processes. And processes are interesting because I think we always think about hackathons for hackers in tech, but I've seen very successfully people doing work hackathons. There's always that thing that people do workarounds for because they don't like the process. But if enough people use a workaround, why doesn't that workaround become the main process? Holding a work hackathon with your team can be a great way to take steps out of a process that are completely unnecessary. And then another thing you can do is just have everyone get in the room or on a call and identify their time sucks. When you phrase it like time sucks, that's really important because what you're doing is really identifying very unnecessary work. And then finally, behavior. I think what's really interesting about behavior is that, simplification isn't just about changing our processes. It's changing how we behave. It's giving people permission, for example, to say no. It's being able to not use jargon. It's not requiring people to have 50-page pre-reads before every meeting. One of the behaviors I like to be able to have people do is tell people what they can start to say no to. There's a great phrase that says, tell me what you say yes to, and I'll tell you who you are. What you say yes to, where you spend your time, is what you value. It would be great if people feel the pressure to say yes all the time, if you could help alleviate that and make it okay for them to say no. So here's the question I have for you. Which tip will you try first? And you can only try one. Right? Will you identify where you spend your time and define meaningful work? Will you kill stupid rules? Will you try NNTR or eliminate zombie meetings through a meeting audit? There's a lot of things within your control that you can start doing right now to get to the work that matters. And I hope that you'll try that. I want to thank you for having me here as your closing keynote. It's been very, very exciting for me to be able to talk about this topic that I know will have a huge impact on you personally and professionally. And I hope you get to the work that matters. Thanks, everyone. And I hope that you had an excellent conference. Take care.